is Leslie Bell Stanton, and today's presentation is going to focus on historic preservation. Specifically, our topic is going to be on historical preservation of buildings, which is part of the responsibility of the National Park Service. So, to begin looking at preservation in the United States, let's look at a brief legislative history. First, we have the Antiquities Act of 1906, which was signed into law by President Theodore Roosevelt on June 8, 1906. On August 25, 1916, the National Park Service Organic Act was signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson. This U.S. federal law established the National Park Service as an agency of the U.S. Department of the Interior, initially dealing with national parks and national monuments. On June 11, 1933, Executive Order 6166 was signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. This order made the National Park Service the sole federal agency required to consolidate and oversee all of the national parks, monuments, and memorials, as well as the national military parks and 11 national cemeteries. All of them were rolled into a single national park system. The National Preservation Act was signed into law on October 15, 1966, by President Lyndon B. Johnson. This serves to establish both a preservation program and a system of procedural protections. Its goal was to encourage the identification and protection of historic resources, which also included archaeological resources at the federal level as well as the state and local level. It was enacted due to the rapid destruction of places that were significant to American history. One of the major things it did was to establish a National Register of Historic Places, which is the official federal inventory of sites, districts, buildings, structures, and objects significant to the national or state or local level in regards to American history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, and culture. This register focuses on coordinating and supporting public and private efforts to identify, evaluate, and protect America's historic and archaeological resources. Now, anyone can make a nomination, but there is a strict procedure and group of forms and requirements that are involved. Maps and photographs are required, and forms must be, as stated, adequately documented and technically and professionally correct and sufficient. So what they're saying there is the descriptions and the statements of significance must be prepared in accord with the standards that are generally accepted by academic historians, architectural historians, and archaeologists. The nomination form is a legal document as well as a reference for historical, architectural, and archaeological data. Now, according to the National Park Service, there are 4 criteria used to evaluate the significance of a property nominated for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places. One is applicable criteria. Under that, you have event. An event means that the building was associated with an event that made a significant contribution to the major pattern of American history. Architecture and engineering reflect the elements in the building that are important to the history. Architectural style is another element, and there are 40 architectural style codes listed on the National Register Information System, with 01 being no style listed, 10 being colonial, and 52 being classical revival, for example. You also have area of significance, and what this refers to is the historic theme that's associated with a property. And now each property must identify at least one area of significance in order to qualify. And those categories can include such things as industry, religion, maritime history, and transportation. So for this part of the presentation, I thought we'd take a little road trip to Middlesex County, Virginia, and see some of the buildings there that are on the historic register. So we're going to start our road trip here at Lower Church, or the Piankatank Parish. When we're looking at applicable criteria, we're looking at event, architecture and engineering. When we're looking at architecture, we're looking at colonial, and we're looking at significance, we're looking at architecture and religion. The oldest church constructed here was the Church of the Piankatank Parish, a Protestant Episcopal Church of England built in 1650. In 1665, this church united with Lancaster Parish to form the Christ Church Parish. Following that union, Piankatank Church became a chapel of ease, or a chapel that provided for the ease and comfort of parishioners who lived some distance away from the main parish church. The new building was ready for use on October 25th, 1717, and became known as Lower Chapel for Christ Church. It was abandoned by the Episcopalians after the disestablishment following the Revolutionary War, and it's said to have been used as a school by the Methodists and Baptists. Lower Church is one of a very few surviving colonial churches. It is distinctive architecturally. Besides Augusta Stone Church in Augusta County, it is Virginia's only colonial church to retain its clipped gable roof. It is also one of the few colonial churches to be laid entirely in English bond brickwork. Beginning around the Middle Ages, this was the standard for English buildings and structures. Compared to the Flemish bond, it is stronger and used more in projects like bridges and viaducts. Its pattern consists of laying one course or row of alternating courses of stretchers, sides of the brick, and one row of headers, ends of the brick, underneath. So our second stop here is at Christ Church Parish. And when we're looking at the applicable criteria, then we're looking at event, architecture, and engineering. For architectural style, we have none listed. And for the areas of significance, we have architecture and religion. The current brick church building was completed in 1714, replacing the original wooden building, which was by best guesses made of clapboard. It is a single-story rectangular brick building with a gable roof. Like many Anglican churches across Virginia, Christ Church was abandoned during the disestablishment following the Revolution. During the American Revolution, the church was abandoned, it deteriorated, the roof fell in, and a sycamore tree grew up the center aisle. The brick building was restored about 1840. This building is architecturally distinctive, and the elements include the Flemish bond brickwork in the surviving walls. Flemish bond is a decorative bond lending visual quality to a wall's surface. It consists of alternating stretchers and headers. Originally, the Flemish bond included glazed headers. The records relating to the construction of Christ Church are supported by several inscriptions on the church itself. 3 bricks bear the inscribed date 1714, which marked the completion of the walls of the second church. In addition, the letters IH on one of these bricks refers to John Hipkin, who is credited with the carpentry, plumbing, and glazing. 2 other bricks are marked with EC and a form of HI respectively, and the name W. Johnson appears on a 4th. Christ Church's mason, Alexander Graves, did not leave any initial in his work. Christ Church is one of Virginia's most significant colonial parishes, and its churchyard also boasts many beautiful colonial and early Republic tombs. Additionally, it is the final resting place for Congressman Andrew Jackson Montague and Chesty Puller, the most decorated U.S. Marine in history, are buried here. Additionally, the grave of Sir Henry Chicheley, Knight and Deputy Governor, is located beneath the communion table. Several graves lie under the floor, and Edward Thompson's slab sits under the aisle flagstones, as it was discovered under the floor of the church when the building was renovated in the 1920s. Okay, so today our third stop is going to be here at the old Middlesex County Courthouse in downtown Urbana. The applicable criteria here is event, architecture, and engineering. The architectural style is no style listed, and then the areas of significance are both law and architecture. Even though the old Middlesex County Courthouse building has undergone several alterations and purposes, it remains a rare example of colonial courthouse structures and collection of pre-revolutionary civic architecture. It's unmatched by any other state. It exists as one of Virginia's 11 colonial courthouses. And now in 1685, a courthouse was ordered to be constructed in the village seaport of Urbana, the county's only incorporated town and thriving port city. Construction did not begin, however, until 1748 due to arguments regarding ferry access. During the American Revolution, the local Committee of Safety met here to try local gentry for suspected loyalty to the Crown. During the Civil War, this building served as a barracks for Confederate troops. Now, Middlesex County justices relocated the courthouse to Saluda in 1847, and this building was restyled in the Gothic manner and converted into an interdenominational chapel. In 1948, it was deconsecrated and deeded to the Middlesex County Women's Club. So we're finishing up here at the second old Middlesex County Courthouse. When we're looking at applicable criteria, we're looking at event, architecture, and engineering. When we're looking at architectural style, it is colonial. And when we're looking at areas of significance, The next Middlesex County Courthouse was built in 1852, and it's considered a later but still significant example of the Virginia Temple Form arcaded courthouse plan that was seen in Virginia's colonial courthouses and early civic buildings. This town hall type of architecture was considered a noble and traditional example of Virginia's brick architecture, even though it had stylistically been replaced by the Jeffersonian Temple portico courthouse architecture. The site elements consist of a central building and a complex of office buildings, which include the courthouse, the clerk's office, and a jail. A Confederate Civil War monument completes this classic Virginian courthouse square, which is surrounded by a low Flemish bond brick wall. Now, the county clerk's office is a single story, gable roofed American bond or common bond brick structure built at the same time as the courthouse. Also in the complex and considered stylistically contemporary with the other buildings is the jail, and that consists of a hip roof, two-story brick structure, also laid in American bond. Substantial repairs were made to the courthouse building in November of 1865, and the courthouse served its appointed function through the 19th and into the 20th century, with the rear or the north section added in the 1920s, where the clerk's office was relocated in 1931. In 1965, a new wing, complementing the old courthouse design, was constructed with a new jail built behind the courthouse complex. This concludes our presentation for today. Thank you all for joining me and have a great day.